There is a prayer that opens doors you cannot see, and it does not begin with panic, it begins with revelation. Most people only pray about money when pressure rises and deadlines approach, but the prayer that brings supply from unseen sources is not rooted in fear. It is rooted in understanding. When you understand that provision is a promise and not a possibility, your tone changes, your confidence changes, and your expectation changes. You are no longer trying to persuade heaven to help you. You are standing on what has already been declared available to you. This kind of prayer starts with recognizing your true source. Your paycheck is not your source. Your clients are not your source. Your business is not your source. Those are channels, and channels can dry up, shift, or change without notice. But the source never runs dry. When you pray with this revelation, you detach your faith from visible systems and attach it to the one who controls all systems. You stop limiting your expectation to what your current circumstances can produce. The prayer that opens unseen provision is spoken from alignment. It sounds like this: Father, I thank you that you are my provider. I thank you that you are not limited by the economy, by my background, or by my present situation. I believe that you have already made a way for my needs to be met. I trust you as my source. When you pray this way, you are not informing God of your need. He already knows. You are aligning your heart with His promise. Alignment removes desperation. Desperation says, if this doesn't happen, I'm finished. Faith says, even if I don't see it yet, it is working. Faith understands that unseen does not mean non-existent. Just because you cannot trace the money does not mean it cannot reach you. Just because you cannot calculate how it will happen does not mean it cannot happen. Faith steps beyond logic without denying wisdom. This prayer also requires confidence in covenant. You are not approaching as a stranger hoping for mercy. You are approaching as a child trusting a father. That changes the posture of your prayer. You speak with gratitude before you see results. You thank Him in advance because you believe the answer is already in motion. Thanksgiving is the language of expectation. When you thank before you receive, you are declaring that you trust the integrity of the promise. Fear tries to interrupt this process. It whispers that nothing is changing. It points to overdue notices and empty accounts. But the prayer that unlocks unseen sources refuses to bow to fear. It answers fear with truth. It answers doubt with confession. It chooses to speak provision instead of lack. Words matter. After you pray, you guard your mouth. You do not undo in conversation what you established in prayer. You refuse to rehearse failure. You refuse to predict defeat. You speak in agreement with your prayer because many people approach prayer for finances with a sense of uncertainty, hoping something might happen, but never truly expecting it to happen. That uncertainty weakens their stance. The prayer that brings money from unseen sources must be prayed with expectation, not hesitation. Expectation is the bridge between promise and manifestation. When you pray expecting nothing, you position yourself to notice nothing. But when you pray expecting movement, you become alert to opportunities, ideas, and divine connections that others overlook. Faith is not passive. It is active trust. It speaks before it sees. When you pray for provision, you must settle the issue in your heart that God is willing and able to supply. If you are unsure about His willingness, your prayer will be timid. If you doubt His ability, your prayer will be filled with hidden anxiety. But when you are convinced that supply belongs to you according to promise, your words carry boldness. Boldness is not loudness, it is certainty. This kind of prayer also requires you to remove limits you have placed on how provision can arrive. Many people unconsciously decide the only way they can receive money is through their salary, a specific client, or a particular deal. They pray, but they tie God's hands with their expectations. The unseen realm operates beyond your calculations. Provision can come through refunds, gifts, ideas, partnerships, unexpected favor, debt cancellation, or opportunities you never planned for. When you pray, you must release the outcome into God's wisdom and allow Him to choose the channel. There is also a cooperation between prayer and obedience. Sometimes unseen sources are connected to instructions you have been ignoring. A conversation you need to have, a skill you need to develop, a step you need to take, generosity you need to practice. Faith listens. When you pray for supply, stay sensitive. Guidance often precedes increase. The prayer opens the door, but obedience walks through it. Another important element is consistency. One prayer prayed in faith is powerful, but a lifestyle of faith creates momentum. Instead of praying only in crisis, cultivate daily gratitude and declaration. Speak life over your finances even when things are stable. Declare increase even before pressure arises. Consistency builds confidence, and confidence strengthens expectation. You must also guard your inner dialogue. After you pray, your mind may try to calculate how it could happen. It may search for logical pathways and panic when it cannot find them. This is where you stand firm. You remind yourself that unseen does not mean impossible. The same power that creates opportunities you cannot see is at work on your behalf. Refuse to rehearse worst-case scenarios. Refuse to magnify obstacles. The prayer that unlocks unseen provision is supported by peace. Peace is evidence that you trust the process. When you truly believe supply is arranged, you rest. You continue working diligently. You remain responsible. But inwardly you are steady. That steadiness keeps you from making desperate decisions that sabotage long-term increase. It keeps you positioned to recognize divine openings the moment they appear. Faith is not a moment. It is a posture that continues long after you say Amen. The unseen realm operates by spiritual laws just as the natural world operates by physical laws. You cannot see gravity, yet you respect it because you understand its effect. In the same way, there are principles that govern increase, and the prayer that brings money from unseen sources works in harmony with those principles. One of the greatest of these is the law of sowing and reaping. What you sow consistently, you position yourself to reap. Your giving, your generosity, your time, your service, your obedience, none of it disappears. It enters a system designed to produce a return. Many want harvest without seed. They want increase without participation. But faith understands partnership. When you pray for provision, examine your sowing. Have you been faithful with what is already in your hand? Have you honored opportunities to give, even when it stretched you? Seed activates unseen forces. When seed leaves your hand, it does not leave your life. It moves into your future. The prayer of faith calls in what your seed has set in motion. Giving is not a financial strategy alone. It is a declaration of trust. It says that you believe your source is greater than what you are releasing. It says you are not clinging to money as security. That posture frees you from fear. Fear hoards. Faith sows, and what faith sows, faith expects to reap. When you pray over your finances, remind yourself of the seeds you have planted. Thank God that harvest is connected to those seeds and that it is maturing even when you cannot see it. Another spiritual law at work is the law of words. Words are seeds as well. If you constantly declare lack, you are sowing in the wrong direction. If you continually speak increase, opportunity, and favor, you are planting expectation. The unseen realm responds to alignment. When your heart believes and your mouth agrees, power is released. The prayer that unlocks hidden provision is reinforced daily by your confession. Patience is also part of this process. Harvest does not appear the moment you sow. There is a period where nothing seems to change. This is where many abandon their stance. They assume nothing is happening because nothing is visible. But growth beneath the surface is still growth. Roots form before fruit appears. In the unseen realm, arrangements are being made, connections are aligning, resources are shifting. Faith remains steady during this period. It does not dig up the seed to check if it is working. It does not reverse course because of temporary silence. Instead, it continues thanking, continues declaring, continues expecting. The prayer that brings money from unseen sources rests on this steady confidence. You must also reject comparison. Looking at others and measuring your progress against theirs can breed discouragement. Your seed, your timing, and your pathway are unique. Stay focused on your obedience and your confession. Trust that the same laws that produce results for others are working for you. When you align your prayer with these spiritual principles, you position yourself to receive from avenues you never anticipated, through means you could not have engineered on your own. There is a dimension of prayer where authority replaces anxiety. Many people pray about finances as if they are powerless, as if circumstances are final and unchangeable. But when you understand spiritual authority, your prayer life shifts. You are no longer pleading for survival. You are enforcing what has already been promised. Authority is not arrogance. It is confidence in delegated power. When you pray from authority, you are not trying to create provision. You are calling forth what rightfully belongs to you according to covenant. Authority requires clarity. You must know what you believe before you speak. If you are uncertain, your words will be uncertain. But when you are settled that provision is part of your inheritance, you pray differently. You declare, I receive what has been made available to me. I call in the resources assigned to my life. This is not commanding God. It is commanding circumstances to align with His will. There is a difference. You submit to God, but you resist lack. You honor heaven, but you refuse to bow to deficiency. This kind of prayer also involves spiritual resistance. Lack is not always just a natural issue. Sometimes it is sustained by fear, wrong thinking, or long-standing patterns. When you step into authority, you break agreement with those patterns. You renounce the mindset that says you will always struggle. You reject the narrative that increase is for others but not for you. Authority begins in the mind before it manifests in the material realm. You must also exercise discipline after you pray. Authority is not a one-time declaration. It is a maintained position. When negative thoughts arise, you confront them. When discouraging reports appear, you respond with truth. You do not allow external pressure to dictate internal belief. This consistency builds strength. The more you stand firm, the more natural it becomes to operate from authority instead of fear. Gratitude strengthens authority. When you thank God for provision before it appears, you are demonstrating trust. Gratitude shifts your focus from what is missing to what is promised. It keeps your heart soft while your stance remains firm. Authority without gratitude can become prideful, but authority with gratitude remains aligned and humble. There is also wisdom involved in walking out answered prayer. When resources begin to flow, stewardship matters. Manage wisely what you receive. Honor the increase. Avoid the temptation to return to old habits that created instability. Authority establishes flow, but wisdom sustains it. Prayer opens doors, but discipline keeps them open. The prayer that brings money from unseen sources is powerful because it combines faith, obedience, authority, gratitude, and wisdom. It refuses to accept limitation as permanent. It calls forth opportunity. It stands against fear. It remains steady under pressure. And as you continue to pray this way, to speak this way, and to act this way, you position yourself to see circumstances shift, pathways open, and provision manifest in ways that once seemed unreachable.